Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Max Story.
Hello, everyone. This is Max Story with the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. Thank you guys for checking in today and stopping by. Today, still out in San Diego, California with the U.S. Navy. Ria and I have knocked out 6 of the 10 half-day workshops we had to do. And today, we had a great day. We were focused, these workshops today were focused on the very first book I ever wrote, titled Defining Influence. And the subtitle is Increasing Your Influence Increases Your Options. And one of the things I was talking about with the folks, with the military and the civilian contractors who were also in there, I was helping them understand the difference between authentic influence and artificial influence. And I use the example of if someone promoted me and put me in charge tomorrow, and I've got a star on my collar when I walk in the room, that automatically comes with artificial influence. If I walk in and I don't know anyone, I'm new, I've got a position of authority, and it happens to be a star on my collar, then I've got a lot of artificial influence, and I can make a lot of things happen, get a lot of things done. But this book, Defining Influence, and everything that we've been talking about out here this week in San Diego with the Navy, it's all about developing authentic influence. Authentic influence is based on who you are, your character. It has to be earned. It's not given to anyone. And you can do far more with authentic influence. And also, you don't need a position or a title or any type of rank to grow and develop your authentic influence. But you will definitely have more options in your life if you increase your influence. It's common sense. And so, one thing, it's a joke, but people say, "Are leaders born?" I asked the group today, "Are leaders born?" You never really know what people are going to say, but what I ask them is, have you ever met a leader that was not born? So leaders are born, just like the rest of us, right? The key is, what level of leadership do we have? Everyone's not born as a high-impact leader by no means, but because leadership is influence, the person with the most influence at any given time for any given reason is the leader. Everyone is a leader because everyone has influence. So what we talk about and what we talked about and touched on in this book today in these 2 workshops, and I'm just giving you a little overview of what the book is about. And you may have if you want to dive deep in it, it's not a 30-chapter, 3-page book like most of my books. This book's about 250 pages or so. It's what I call my foundational book. It's the one that I would recommend for anyone to read or listen to on audio if they really want to dive into their own personal growth and development. It's got the foundational principles that really allow all of my other books to actually be applied. You have to know what's really in this book. You can make some headway with the other books without a doubt, but the deep stuff is in Defining Influence. So in that book, I really answer 5 questions throughout the whole book. So it's kind of set up into 5 sections. They're not all equal because the ones on the front end are weighted a little more heavy. But the 5 questions are, question 1 is, why do we influence? And our character is going to determine why we influence, because there's 2 scales. Leadership is influence, but then there's also 2 scales. There's positive influence and negative influence. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of influence and a lot of followers, but they've got bad character and they're doing bad things, but they still have influence. So why we influence is based on our character. Question 2 is, how do we influence? Our character combined with our competency will determine how we influence other people. Character is the most important piece. If you've heard me talk before, I use the 87-13 principle based on a Harvard and Stanford research study that says 87% of our authentic influence, our results, our success, comes from our character, and only 13% from competency. So our combination of character and competency is going to determine how we actually influence people. And then question 3 is, where do we influence? Our passion and purpose is going to determine where we have the greatest influence. Like, I'm passionate about leadership. I've been reading leadership every day, personal growth development books every day since 2008, 10 years. So guess where I have the most influence, where I'm passionate. I get paid today because I was so passionate about it when I discovered it. I became passionate about it, I should say, that now I've written 12 books on it and get paid tens of thousands of dollars to speak around the country. And that's because I'm passionate about it, and I've discovered that's my purpose. So a lot of people, I mentioned to the group today, a lot of times I'll ask people what you're passionate about. And I'll tell you this, if somebody's passionate about something, it takes them about half a second to answer. If someone's not passionate, they're going to have to think about it, and they're probably going to figure out they really don't know. And a lot of times people don't know because they won't intentionally grow and develop themselves to discover what they're passionate about. But once we grow and find and discover our passion and our purpose, that's the area we're going to have the most influence in. Question 4 is, who do we influence? So there I start talking about we influence those who buy into us, those valuing and seeking what we value and seek will volunteer to follow us. Because you got to remember, when I'm saying influence, remember it's authentic influence, the kind you're going to earn based on who you are and what you know. So it's going to be people with shared values. That's who we're going to influence the most. People who value what we value. I talk to people in some of these training sessions I do around the country. Somebody volunteered them to come. They didn't want to be there. Those people, some of them, could care less what we're talking about. They don't have our values. And if it was up to me, I'd let them leave immediately, because I didn't go to these places to talk to those people. They don't share my values. They don't want to hear what I have to say. And doesn't mean they're bad people, but doesn't mean they should be in a room listening to me or being forced to listen. So the question five is, when do we influence? So we started out with why do we influence? We went to how do we influence? Where do we influence? Who do we influence? And then 5 is why do we influence? When do we influence? And we influence others when they want our influence. No matter who we are and how great and awesome and all that kind of craziness, that doesn't really matter unless somebody wants our influence. We choose when others influence us. Everyone else has the same choice. It doesn't matter how great you are. If someone does not want your influence at that moment, based on what you're passionate about or what you're trying to influence them, in which area you're trying to influence them, they're not going to be influenced. So that's what that book talks about. The first 3 questions are about the choices we make as we lead and influence ourselves and others. The last 2 questions deal more with the choices others will make as they decide, first, if they will follow us, and second, when they will follow us. They'll base their choices on who we are and what we know. So asking these 5 questions is important. Knowing the answers is more important, but taking action based on the answers is most important. So cumulatively, the answers to these 5 questions determine your leadership style and your level of influence. Again, that's authentic influence. And again, on a scale of 1 to 10, there's 2 scales, positive and negative. It's going to determine which scale you're on. And a lot of times, we may be on both scales at the same time. We may be positive in some areas and negative in other areas of our life. Or we may be positive at work, negative at home, or negative at work and positive at home. So if you want to dive deep into increasing your influence so that you can increase your options, check out Defining Influence. It's in paperback. It's an ebook. It's also an audio book. And you can dive into it. So hope you enjoy this little overview. We had a lot of fun today. First session was 3.5 hours this morning we spoke, and then 3 hours this afternoon. Tomorrow we actually going to be kicking off in another book, so I'll tell you about it tomorrow afternoon. But I hope you guys have a great day. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.